Hey, this is Greg. In this Canva tutorial, we're going to look at how to do a recreation of Netflix animated logo using Canva's match and move features. So stick around and check it out. Okay, in this lesson, we are trying to recreate the animated Netflix logo. But first, real quick, let's just cover a couple things that I hope are obvious. The first is we're just experimenting for fun with the goal of pushing ourselves to see what is possible in Canva. But then obviously as a content creator, you always want to respect the work of others, copyright laws of course, so we won't be using this logo beyond this experiment, but hopefully we will learn some new Canva skills that we can apply to our other projects. And secondly, if your goal is to be a professional animator or logo designer, then obviously Canva is not going to be the recommended tool of choice. There's other software like Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Animator, and lots of other stuff that's going to be better suited to the task. But again, our goal here is just to experiment and see what is possible in Canva. And while I do always promote finding the right tool to match the work that you do regularly, I also think a certain amount of experimentation with any software is fun and a good way to see what that software is capable of. So just keep in mind that you always should be willing to invest and level up when appropriate, when it's going to be a good investment. Okay, soapbox speech over, so let's jump in and see what Canva is capable of. Okay, anytime you're doing a project like this and you're drawing inspiration from something else, you obviously want to study that a fair bit. So let's just take a quick look at the Netflix logo. So this is sort of the signature end that I'm sure you're familiar with if you checked out Netflix. So we can see that it's basically made up of rectangular shapes. We have this little drop shadow here. Now again, we're not going to go for this perfectly, but we are sort of going to use this as our inspiration to see what we can do. And then there is an animated version of this, which is changed a little bit over time, but we're going to be looking mainly at this version here. So let's just hit a play button here. And we see how that N is animated and sort of how it flies in on screen. Now we're not going to recreate every aspect of this, but we're going to see what we can do within Canva. Okay, here we are back now in Canva, and I want to try to recreate this shape. I've just copied over an image of the Netflix logo, and so we're going to try to recreate this shape using a rectangle. So I'm going to tap R on my key just to bring out a rectangle. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my basic color palette. So we have this color here, and then these are sort of the same. So that's two colors, and then a third color for the shadow here. So I'll start by just alt-clicking to drag out three different rectangles, and I'm just going to use this to grab my basic color palette. So with the color selected, I'm going to come under the color swatch here, and then use this plus icon, and then the color sampler, and we'll grab this color. And if I come down to this one here, we're just going to again go under there, again grab a color, we're going to grab this color, and then for a third color, this is going to be just a little bit darker. So again, under our color swatch here, and grab this color here. And so this is the basic color palette here. So I'm just going to group these together. I'll just hit this group button here, and this is going to be our basic color palette. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out some guides. Now my rulers are showing. If I hit Shift R, you'll see that hides rulers. Shift R to bring the rulers back up. You can also go under your file menu under view settings, and this is where you're going to be able to show guides, add guides, things like that. But I also sometimes just drag from the rulers and drag out guides. So you can just click on the ruler and drag out a guide. And I'm just going to roughly position some guides just to give me the basic idea of the shapes here. So I'm dragging out guides to the edges, and I'll drag out one more set of guides just to have them here. And then once I have all these guides in place, what I'm going to do is just grab this logo here, and I'm going to get rid of it because I don't really need that anymore. I didn't get one guide, so let me do this again. Just this guide here didn't seem to stay, so I have that now, and let me just delete this here. So now I have my guides. I might not use these exactly, but I just wanted to give myself a rough approximation here. And then I'm also going to go under show hide guides. If I remind myself to go under the file menu, view settings, we have here show rulers and guides. That's Shift plus R. I can also lock those guides. So let me just lock those guides. That way I don't accidentally click on them and move them, because when they're not locked, you can sort of click on these blue lines and move them around. Okay, so I have my basic shapes here. Let me actually ungroup this for a second just so I can click on these individually, because what we're going to need is we're going to need this one for our center. And so this one's going to come from here all the way down to this corner here. And then we're going to have these here for our other lines. So I'm going to just drag this out here and drag that down. So what I'm saying, I'm just making the basic shapes that are going to make up this. Now this one's going to come from here, but this one's going to be at an angle. So let me just drag this out. And then I need to rotate this. So I have this rotation here, so I can grab and rotate this. Of course, I want this to be up higher, so I could use Control on my keyboard and the bracket keys to move something up and down in the layer stack. You can also come under this position menu here in layers, and then you can move it up and down here. So I'm just going to move this so this layer is on top here, and I want it to go roughly from this corner to this bottom corner here. Now I could keep rotating like this here. You can also come under the Arrange menu here and sort of try to type an exact number here. So if I type in minus 19.5, then you can get really precise. And again, I wish that Canva had a way to sort of anchor something by a corner point there when you rotate it, but I can't do that. It's going to rotate by the center if I rotate it. So this isn't quite what I want here. See, it's missing at the bottom here, and you could zoom in if you want to be more precise. So I can zoom in here and see that that's not quite missing, even though it is precisely hitting that corner up there. So then that lets me know that I think I need to rotate this a little bit more or a little bit less. Minus 19.4, let's try minus 19.4. No, I wanted to go the other way. So again, oops, Control Z if you accidentally do something you didn't mean to do. Let's try minus 19.6. And again, I'm trying to be somewhat precise here, but we are just experimenting, so we don't have to go absolutely crazy. But that's pretty good. That basically goes from corner to corner. Now, of course, I have some areas that are going to extend behind here that we're going to need to hide, and we'll get into that in a minute here. So let me just come back here and zoom this to fit, and we can see that I have my basic shape here now. I do want to add the shadow color still, and I do want to hide this point here and this point here. So what I'm going to have to do is hit R to add another rectangle, and I'm just going to turn this one to white, and I'm going to use a couple of rectangles just to hide the extra elements that are coming over top. Now, in other programs, you'd be able to mask things, you'd be able to do things, make shapes a little bit more precise. So again, this is something in Canva where we're finding this not perfect, and we're having to do these little hacks. So this is again where I just caution you to not continuously use Canva if you find out that there is a better tool for the job, but to experiment around and figure out what is possible is still going to be a good exercise. So we have that basic shape here. Now I want to duplicate this and use this as my shadow. So I'll actually come into the position menu here, and we can see here's this cross piece. I can actually just come in here and I can duplicate it. Let me just drag this back down here. And again, then the one on the bottom, I want to make it a little bit wider. So let me just drag, and I'm holding the Alt when I drag out to make it wider. Now we can't tell because I haven't changed the color, but we want it to be this other color, this darkest color, which is right here in my color palette. So now I can see that, let's use this for that shadow color. Now, once again, there are some areas that are going beyond that we don't want to see. So I'm going to have to use that rectangle trick again to hide some of these things. So what I'm going to do is grab this one here, Alt click, I'm dragging out another rectangle. We're rotating it to minus 90 degrees. We're going to bring it over here. We're going to use it to hide these little edge pieces. We'll drag that down. Alt click to drag to the other side. I'm going to want one in the center here too. So Alt click and drag out there. And then at the bottom here, we have this a little bit bigger. And then we still have just, let's nudge this one down a little bit just to hide. And again, this one here, let's nudge that over a little bit. And then this one here is obviously needs to be moved back in the layer stack. So let's just come in here because we want this one piece to be in front of everything, but then there. So that gives our basic shape here. Now we have some other ones that we need to position, don't we? I wanted it to be not above that one. So there. Okay, so there we go. We have some basic shapes going on here, and we have the basic. So let me just hit Shift plus R to hide all of our guides here. Deselect everything. So we can see that this one here, let me nudge that over just slightly just to get rid of everything. So what I'm trying to do is just clean things up now so we have pretty sharp edges at all of our corners. This one slides back out slightly. So again, not perfect, but again, we're not going for perfect. We're just experimenting around. So what we've done now is we've created that basic shape. And now we got to move to the next step. How are we going to animate this? How are we going to get that little animation to animate this Netflix N? Okay, so for starters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here on my timeline. I'll use these three dots and I'm going to go ahead and hit duplicate page. You can also hit Control D with the page highlighted. So I'm going to come back to this first page now. Now, since I have it preserved on the second page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to come in here and get rid of some of these things. So I'm going to get rid of this center piece here because we're not going to need that yet. We're not going to need this shadow yet. I'm going to get rid of this piece on this side. Now I have all my white pieces in here still, and that's fine. I just wanted to get rid of those extra pieces. And of course, I'm not going to need this color palette anymore since I know I have that preserved on this final page here. So let me just come here and get rid of these items here. So I'll get rid of that. So now we have this here. So now let me come in here and let me duplicate this page again. So again, Control D. And now I have this component and this component. Okay, so let's talk about animating this. What we want to do is be able to transition to this shape here, but we want it to start on this first page with a smaller rectangle. So I'm going to come back to this first one, and I'm going to drag it all the way down so we can barely see it. And then we want it to expand out to this, okay? If only there was a way to make it go from this to this. Well, there actually is in Canva if you take advantage of page transitions. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our cursor right between these two slides here, this slide, until we see this add transition button. And then the one we want to see is match and move. Okay, so it says beta, so this is still in beta mode, meaning they're still working on this. So hopefully we're going to see even more improvements with this tool because there are a lot of improvements that can be made. There are other ones in here. There's flow, there's color wipe, and if you just put your cursor over these, it's going to show you sort of a preview, but we notice on match and move, look at how it's transitioning from one slide to the next, and we get this animation. Well, that's what we want for this Netflix logo. So we're going to choose this match and move option. Now, as we do this, we see that then we can come in here, and based on the length of the slides, we can come in here and we can set a duration for how long that transition is going to be. Now, previewing it, just holding it over here, it looks pretty good the way it is now, but if I drag this out even longer and then come up here for a preview, we can see we can make that go even slower. Okay, I think we want it to be faster and more zippy, so let's bring it back to about half a second, and half a second I think looks pretty good. Okay, so now we have the transition. We have it going from this slide here to this slide here, and what we want to do is continue to use this match and move option to add in the rest of the letter animation. Now we are going to run into some issues, but I'm going to show you how we handle those as we go along. Okay, so let's come in here again. Once again, let's duplicate this just so we always have another option. And now remember, we're going from this, and now we want to start to work on this center piece. So let's come in here now and let's start to get rid of these extra pieces again. So we're not going to need this. We can get rid of all of these again. Let's come in here. We're not going to need this shadow piece yet. And so we have this option here. Now that we have it to this point, let me duplicate this. Now remember, this is the target here, but before that happens, we want to come in here and we want to drag this all the way up as far as we can go to about right there. And now if I come in here and once again, let's come in here and let's add this match and move. And as we're doing this, we have this option to apply between all pages. Let's go ahead and do that now because yes, we're going to want to use this between all of our pages, at least for the moment. We can always come in there and take it out from a page, but we're going to go ahead and turn that on. Okay, so now let's look at the match and move option, and we'll see that once again, this is what we like, this is what we like, this is what we get. So if we drag this all the way back to the beginning, we can play out this whole thing. Now, if you turn off duration, you might not see that play button, but if you hit this duration button, you'll see this play button here. So now we can see we have this delay, but then in between the slides, boom, we get the animation. Now we have this delay, but in between the slides, boom, we get this animation. If we wait for it, there it is. Okay, now obviously we have some delays in here and that we don't want, right? We have some extra slides, we have some extra delays of what we don't want, but we'll talk about how you can get rid of that later. Okay, for now, we're just making sure that we do get the animations in here. So boom, this little part right here, boom, that's the next part of the animation that we do want. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take that, and then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna continue this process. So once again, I will duplicate this page here. So we're gonna go ahead and hit duplicate to duplicate this page. And we have an extra copy. Now coming back here, remember we're going from this letter here, and now we want to bring in this final letter here. So yes, we do have that. Now, if I come back to this page here, where I did this animation, we actually wanted that shadow to appear as well, right? So let me come over here and let's click on this shadow layer and hit Control C. Let's come back to this page here and hit Control V to paste in that shadow layer. Now we got to get the positioning of it correct, so let's bring it back. It's behind that, and it's behind these white pieces as well. So let's drag it down there, and boom. So that's the shadow layer. But initially here, we don't want to see it on the other side of this end. So I could come in here and I could drag it in like this. Let me make sure I'm selecting it again. Again, Canva is a little quirky, but so there we go. So now we have that. So let's just see now when it animates, does the shadow appear all at once? So the shadow just sort of appears all at once because remember, right here, here's the shadow, Control C to copy it. If we come back to this version here, Control V to paste it in because we actually wanted it here as well. So let me drag it down here. And then remember, let's drag it all the way up to up here. And that looks pretty good right there. So now if we play this transition, so boom, now we can see the shadow sort of animates along with the other part of the letter animating. Now again, Canva is not perfect for this, so we're running into some of the things where we feel like other software could do better. Now I do have something weird going on right here where I'm not sure what that element is we're getting in there. So you have to sort of be careful as you're going in here because if you have a layer that appears on one screen and not on the other, then you will start to get that sort of weird fragments between. So I have something here, but we're going to push forward. We're not going to worry about that. We have a little bit of an artifact showing up here, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. We're going to move forward. We're going to move forward. So we have this here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to now animate this last version here. So we have this. So let's duplicate this page. And then we have the full version here. So if I come back one to here, what I want to do is drag this down all the way. Okay. Now this shadow isn't going to look correct if it's like that. So let's drag it back to that. And then let's come in here and do we have a match and move in between? No, we don't. So let's make sure we have a match and move. So now we get between these two pages, we have it animating upwards. And this looks a little funky, the shadow part. So this is where the shadow part, we can see that we have that on the actual logo itself, but it is kind of tricky to do that sort of animation here. I would almost need a mask coming out this way as well. So this is where I have to decide how much do I care about that shadow part being perfect. And if I've watched this real time, let me just watch it real time again, hitting the play button here, real time. I don't mind that so much. So again, this is where I said we're not going to be able to do things perfectly. So you can spend hours trying to get this exactly right, or you can say, hey, I'm working in Canva. I know this is experimental, so I'm just going to go with good enough. So we're going with good enough. So let's just go ahead and play this through. Now we know we have delays in here, but that's going to be okay. So let's just see. We have the first part of the letter animating there. Then we have to wait, and then we're going to have the second part of the letter. I actually have an extra frame in here, this part here. And so again, there's going to be a delay. Boom. It animates again. Then we have another delay. Now, obviously, we have some things here. Let's get rid of these on this page. We don't need that. We don't need this. So we're just getting rid of the extra stuff that we have in here. Don't need that. And then we have the whole thing. Okay, so I know there are issues now, especially with all these delays, but we're going to work on that because what we want to do now is we want to export this whole thing because once we have this as a video clip, then we can come in here and cut up the video clip and change the timing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come under share options here and we're going to download this and we're going to download under the download options. We're going to choose MP4 video, highest quality, and we're going to go ahead and download this. We're going to download all the pages. So we'll go ahead and click download. So we're going to wait for this to download. I'm going to save it to my computer and then I'll bring it back in Canva and then we'll see the final part of this process. Okay, I exported what we were just working as an MP4 file. Now what I've done is I've opened a new presentation file and under the upload sections, I'm going to upload that MP4 file that I just downloaded. So I clicked on uploads. It's this Netflix logo here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this and it'll take a moment here and it's going to see with this progress bar here, it is now bringing that logo the MP4 version of that logo, that video file, into here. And so we're going to wait a second for this to load, and then we're going to proceed on, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. Okay, we can see it finished loading, and we can see it's 32.5 seconds long. We obviously don't want it to be that long, but let's go ahead and let's double click on this to bring this into our project. And now if we just watch it for a second, we're going to see that we have all these lags and delays in here, but then we do have the animation movements. Now what we want to do is we want to trim this video now so we can get it down to just the parts we want. So I'll go ahead and click on this to pause it. I'm just going to position it so that it takes up the entire screen, so I'll drag it out there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I want to click on this duration button here, and this is where I want to come through, and I want to start to animate this and pick out the parts that we don't need. Okay, so I want to come in here and I want to start to drag this along. I'm waiting for the point right where that starts, and so right about, if I just drag and hit, what you can do is you can drag around using this button here. If you need to zoom in on your timeline, you can click here to zoom between the page and zoom between the thumbnails. And if I click so it's zoom, now you see this little film strip view. Now if I use my zoom option here, you can see that now at the bottom of my screen, it's actually making this sort of thumbnail view even larger, film strip view even larger. So that just makes it so you can be a little bit more accurate in here. And then what you can do is you can click on this playhead. Then if you hit the space bar, you can actually hit the space bar to stop this and to move it forward. So right about there is just about where it starts. So I'm going to come just before that. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all that intro part because we don't need all that other parts. So now we can see we have it pretty much at the start of this first animation. So then I'll hit the space bar again. And then right at the end of that animation, let me just go boom, right about there. That's where I want to clip this. I want to split this clip. So what I'm going to do now is I'll come here under these options. You have split page. And so now this first frame here, if I hit space bar, that is just the first part of the animation. And then I want to let it run right to the point where I see once again the animation starts. So I can see this just appeared right there, but so we're gotta wait a second, and right about there is where it starts. So let me just drag back a little bit, drag back. Again, you're gonna have to hit the space bar and just sort of fool around until you get this exactly right. So right about there, let's try that. Let me just drag this forward now. Again, all these movements I'm doing is I'm just trimming my timeline. So now I have the first part goes into the second part. There's a slight delay there, so I think I can trim that even farther. So let's just see now. Let's look at this again. That's pretty good. So right from the first transition right into the second one. And then again, once again, just wait until right after that second one stops. And we have a little fragment here, but again, we're not going to worry about that. And so we have that right there. And then once again, we want to split this page. So when you split the page, it's splitting it wherever this playhead is. So right there, we're going to split page. And then once again, we're going to let it play forward until we find exactly where the next part of the animation starts, which is right about right here. So let's just drag it back. This just takes a little bit of experimenting here. So right about there. And so let's drag this just to trim this part. Now let's play through this from here. That looks pretty good. And then, so now if I stop it right there and drag this, now I should pretty much have the whole animated logo. So let's see. Boom, boom, boom. And again, if you wanted to come in and smooth out some of these delays, you could trim it a little bit more, but that's pretty good. So that is our animated logo here. So what I could do now if I wanted to is I could save this out again so that I had another MP4 that wasn't such a big file here. So let me just come in here, and once again I'm going to go share, and we're going to download this, and we're going to call this one, so we'll do MP4 again. So download MP4 video. We'll go ahead and click download, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it something like trim the Netflix logo, something that I'm going to recognize since we're getting rid of a lot of this video. Now we have one that's much shorter. We don't have all those delays in between. We have more of that smooth animation that we're looking for. So again, you can see where Canva is very finicky. That's why you wouldn't want to always use Canva for this sort of thing all the time, but this match and move feature is pretty cool, and you may be able to think of other applications that are more practical where you can start to use this animation option using transitions between pages, using this match and move option inside of Canva. Okay, so I saved off that trimmed version and I have uploaded back into Canva. So here it is. Here's this trimmed version. Now what I could do is if I went back to that original version where we created this animation, and let me just go ahead and let me hit Control A to grab everything. Let me hit Control G to group everything. So I have everything grouped together now. I'm going to hit Control C to copy. I'm going to come into this design here. I'm going to hit Control V to paste it. But actually, before I hit Control V here, let's look at this part here. This is the first part here, and so this is this video clip playing. Let me just go to duration, because what I want to do is with this duration turned on, I want to create a new page, and that's where I'm going to paste the new logo there. But first, let me just go back here to make sure I'm pasting it in the right place. Let me just actually paste it here on top of my video, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn down the transparency for a second just so I can really see and get this positioned over top. And so let me just actually come in here and I could crop this if I needed to, just really get it so it fits basically over this here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the whole idea is we're going to get it pretty good. So now let me hit Control X to copy that. So now we just have the video here. And let me just get rid of this here, delete, Control V, because then it's going to paste it in the same spot. We're going to come in here, we're going to turn the transparency back up. And so the reason why I did that is because what we can do is we can have this play, we can have it play out, but then it's going to transition to this here. And then once again, with this transition, what I'm going to do is I want to duplicate this page here. And I want to have this other one last for just a second. And then this one lasts for just a second. We may adjust these timings if we need to. But then for this one here, we're going to make it a lot bigger. So let me just zoom way out, and we're just going to make it way bigger like this, because what we're going to do then is in between here, we're going to use the same transition trick, the same match and move. And so now if we play out the whole thing, let me just come in here and once again fit this and hit play from the very beginning. So we have our animation here, and it's going to go to this other version, but boom, boom, it's zooming out, okay? But I want it to zoom out even farther, so let's just go and let's zoom way out here. I want it to basically make the entire screen red, so boom, like that. Now let's drag it back. Let's make some sort of transition between these two here. We need like a fade or something, a dissolve between these two. Let's just see, again, fit. So again, you can tell I'm experimenting around a decent bit with these transitions just to find what is going to work best, okay? So you do have some transitions that you need to do. And then the other thing I might do is on this final page here, if I actually do some text itself, and I type out, let's just put a new heading in here. And I think the font that's going to be similar to what you get on the Netflix logo is maybe this font here. So we'll add that in. We want to turn it white. So let me just make this be white instead. So we're going to go ahead and change that to white. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to change this text, of course, to say Netflix. And then let's make a copy of this. So let's just come under this here. Let's use these three dots. We'll duplicate it. We'll put the one on top of the other. But actually, let's put one slightly above, and let's just go and make sure we're grabbing the backmost layer. So this backmost layer, and then this backmost layer, we're going to change to black. So change that to black. And then we'll just use our arrow keys just to change the positioning of these just ever so slightly. So it sort of gives that sort of effect. Again, let's grab these two and group them together. But if you remember all the versions of the Netflix logo, they also had this version here, which is sort of this static text with slight drop shadow. Again, this isn't exactly like theirs, but we're just experimenting. So now let's play this whole thing through. Boom, boom. and then suddenly it goes like that, and we have this Netflix, okay? And so then we could save this off as our final version. So let's just go full screen for a second here and have this whole thing autoplay just so we can see the final version that we landed on here. We're gonna go ahead and hit present, and we're gonna see this final version of this Netflix logo entirely done within Canva, okay? So is it perfect? Of course not, but did we learn a lot about how we can do some cool things with this match and move feature within Canva? And then you can also use the video editing tools to trim out some of those delays. Hopefully there'll be a future version of that match and move where you can start to do something like you do if you know about keyframing. Keyframing in other software is basically where you add a keyframe where there's going to be a change in the animation, and you can add additional keyframes to have different points of different animation. It would be cool to see Canva advance to a little bit more advanced tools. It's never going to take the place of some of the advanced animation software out there, but it is still cool that we're starting to get more and more of these cool features inside of Canva. So make sure you play around with this match and move, see what you can come up with, and of course you could take what we've done here and you could apply it to your own logo just to do a little animation of any sort of element within Canva. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Hope you found this cool. Feel free to like and subscribe below if you want more Canva tutorials.